Ladies and gentlemen, today we are not here to talk about noise. We are here to talk about silence, the kind of silence that builds warriors. When we think of strength, we often imagine loud voices, bold statements, dramatic reactions. But true strength, it is calm, it is composed, it is controlled. Look at the life of Muniba Mazari, a woman who went through an accident that changed her life forever. A woman who could have chosen bitterness, a woman who could have chosen anger, a woman who could have shouted at the world and asked, "Why me?" But she chose something more powerful. She chose silence. And let me explain something very clearly. Silence does not mean surrender. Silence does not mean you have nothing to say. Silence means you have so much strength that you don't need to prove it to anyone. There are people who will misunderstand you. There are people who will judge you without knowing your story. There are people who will criticize you from a place of comfort, while you are fighting battles they cannot even imagine. And what do most people do? They react. They argue. They defend themselves. But emotional intelligence teaches us something different. When you respond to every insult, you give your energy away. When you try to correct every false opinion, you lose your focus. When you explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, you drain your own power. Silence is not empty. Silence is discipline. It is the ability to say, "I know who I am. I do not need your approval." Muniba Mazari teaches us that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. She lost mobility, but she gained purpose. She lost what she had, but she discovered who she was. That is the educational lesson here. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And your response determines your destiny. When something painful happens in your life, you have two choices. You can become a victim, or you can become a voice. But before becoming a voice, you must master silence. Why? Because silence gives you perspective. In silence, you reflect. In silence, you understand your emotions. In silence, you heal. If you react immediately, you react emotionally. If you pause, you respond intelligently. Cesar Lozano often reminds us that maturity is not about age. It is about control. And control begins in the mind. When you are attacked verbally, silence protects your dignity. When you are doubted, silence protects your focus. When you are underestimated, silence protects your strategy. Not every battle deserves your participation. Some battles are won simply by refusing to fight. Muniba did not fight the world with anger. She fought with resilience. She did not shout her strength. She lived it. And that is your lesson today. Build yourself in private. Strengthen your mind. Strengthen your character. Strengthen your purpose. Let people underestimate you if they want. Let them talk. While they talk, you work. While they criticize, you improve. While they doubt, you grow. And one day, your results will speak so loudly that your silence will be understood. Silence is powerful because it shows confidence. Insecurity is loud. Confidence is calm. Remember this. The lion does not have to roar at every barking dog. You do not need to respond to everything. You do not need to win every argument. Win your peace. Win your discipline. Win your self-respect. And when you finally speak, let your words educate, inspire, and elevate, not retaliate, because silence, when used wisely, is not weakness. Silence is power. Silence is not weakness. Let me repeat that with strength. Silence is not weakness. It is emotional mastery. It is control. It is power under pressure. Most people think strength is loud. They think power is raising your voice, defending yourself instantly, reacting immediately. But no, real strength is when you can react, and you choose not to. Real strength is when your emotions are burning inside you, but your mind is calm enough to say, "I will not lose control." Look at the life of Muniba Mazari. After the accident that changed her life forever, she had every reason to scream at destiny, every reason to complain, every reason to ask, "Why me?" But instead of turning her pain into noise, she turned it into wisdom. That is emotional mastery. That is the difference between reacting and responding. Understand this clearly. When someone insults you and you immediately respond with anger, you are not in control. They are. They pushed a button, and you reacted. That means they control your emotions. But when someone tries to provoke you, and you remain calm, composed, and silent, you send a powerful message. You do not have access to my peace. Silence is not about being passive. It is about being disciplined. It is about understanding that not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every criticism deserves your response. Not every misunderstanding deserves your explanation. Sometimes, the strongest move is to look at the situation, breathe deeply, and say nothing. Because when you master your emotions, you master your life. Do you know how many opportunities are destroyed because someone could not control their tongue? How many relationships are broken because someone reacted instead of reflecting? Emotional mastery requires pause. It requires awareness. It requires you to feel the emotion rising inside you. The anger, the frustration, the hurt. And instead of exploding, you choose stability. And that is not easy. It is easy to shout. It is easy to argue. It is easy to defend your ego. But it takes character to stay silent when your ego wants to scream. It takes maturity to walk away when your pride wants to fight. It takes intelligence to understand that sometimes winning an argument means losing your peace. Silence allows you to observe. When you are silent, you see clearly. You listen carefully. You understand deeply. You analyze before acting. That is power. That is strategy. That is leadership. Emotionally weak people react to everything. Emotionally strong people choose their battles. They know that energy is limited. They know that attention is valuable. They do not waste it proving themselves to people who are committed to misunderstanding them. When you master silence, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, the world cannot control you. Your pain does not define you. Your response does. Listen carefully. Pain is inevitable. Disappointment will come. Betrayal may come. Loss may come. Failure will visit you at some point in your life. But none of those things have the authority to define who you are, unless you surrender that authority. The event is not your identity. The struggle is not your name. The scar is not your future. Look at the journey of Muniba Mazari. After her accident, she could have accepted a label. Victim. Disabled. Broken. Limited. Society was ready to give her those words. People are always ready to define you by your worst moment. But she refused. She made a decision, and that decision changed everything. She decided that what happened to her would not be the final chapter of her story. That is the lesson. You cannot always control what hits you, but you can control how you stand up. Pain will either make you bitter or better. It will either shrink you or shape you. It will either become your excuse or your education. And the difference is not in the pain, it is in your response. When something painful happens, your mind immediately asks, "Why me?" That question keeps you stuck. But powerful people ask a different question. What now? That question moves you forward. That question activates responsibility. That question shifts you from victim to warrior. Do not misunderstand me. Pain hurts. It is heavy. It is uncomfortable. It can break your heart and shake your confidence. But pain is a teacher. It teaches resilience. It teaches patience. It teaches strength you never knew you had. The problem is not pain. The problem is when you build a house inside your pain and decide to live there forever. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it happened. If someone betrayed you, you are not betrayal. If you failed, you are not failure. If you lost something important, you are not loss. Those are experiences, not identities. And here is where responsibility becomes powerful. The moment you say, "I am responsible for my response," you take your power back. You stop waiting or apologies that may never come. You stop expecting life to be fair. You stop blaming everyone around you. You stand up and say, "This is my life, and I will decide how this chapter ends." That decision is everything. Because when you respond with growth, pain becomes strength. When you respond with discipline, pain becomes wisdom. When you respond with courage, pain becomes purpose. The world may try to label you by your wounds, but you must label yourself by your will. Your response is your signature. It is the evidence of your character. It is proof of your maturity. Do not let your darkest moment write your identity. Pick up the pen yourself. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Read that again. There are people who do not want clarity. They want control. They are not confused about you. They have already decided who you are in their minds. And no matter how much you talk, how much you justify, how much you defend, they will twist your words to fit their narrative. So why are you exhausting yourself? Every time you over-explain, you are subconsciously asking for validation. You are saying, please understand me. Please approve of me. But here is the truth. Not everyone deserves access to your story. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table of explanations. Look at the journey of Muniba Mazari. Do you think she sat down with every critic to justify her choices? Do you think she wasted her strength explaining her worth to people who had already judged her? No. She understood something powerful. When your life has purpose, you do not have time to convince small minds. Some people listen to respond, others listen to attack. Very few listen to understand. If someone truly wants to understand you, a simple explanation is enough. If someone wants to misunderstand you, 1,000 explanations are not enough. Stop, doctor, aiming your emotional energy, trying to fix someone else's perception. Their perception is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is your character, your integrity, your growth. When you constantly defend yourself, you live in reaction mode. You become anxious. You become defensive. You start overthinking every word, every action, every decision. And slowly, you begin to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. No, that is not strength. Strength is saying, I know my intentions. I know my heart. I know my values. I do not need to perform for your approval. You must learn to recognize when a conversation is productive and when it is pointless. Productive conversations create understanding. Pointless conversations create frustration. And here is a powerful lesson. Silence can be a boundary. When you stop explaining, you stop chasing. When you stop chasing, you regain dignity. You allow your actions to speak. You allow time to reveal the truth. You allow results to answer the doubts. Mature people do not argue to win. They step back to preserve peace. They do not waste hours trying to correct every rumor. They focus on building something so strong that opinions become irrelevant. If someone is committed to misunderstanding you, understand this. It is not about you. It is about their insecurity, their projection, their limitations. You do not have to carry that weight. Protect your energy. Protect your focus. Protect your peace. Speak when there is openness. Stay silent when there is resistance. Not every mind is ready for your truth, and that is okay. Turn your trauma into testimony. Do not hide it. Do not deny it. Do not let it rot inside you like a silent wound. Face it. Own it. Transform it. Because the very thing that tried to break you can become the very thing that builds you. Trauma is heavy. It shakes your confidence. It makes you question your worth. It makes you ask dangerous questions like, am I enough? Or, will I ever recover? But listen carefully. Trauma is an event, not your identity. It is something that happened to you, not something that defines you. Look at the powerful journey of Muniba Mazari. After her life-changing accident, she could have hidden from the world. She could have chosen silence out of shame. She could have allowed her trauma to become her prison. But instead, she stood up, not physically at first, but mentally. She decided that her pain would have purpose. She turned her suffering into strength. She turned her scars into symbols of survival. That is the lesson. You cannot change what happened. You cannot go back and rewrite the moment. But you can decide what that moment will mean in your future. Trauma can either make you close your heart or open your mission. It can make you isolate yourself or inspire others. It can turn you bitter or make you better. The difference is in your decision. When you hide your pain, it controls you. When you speak about it with courage, you control it. There are people walking around carrying silent battles, people who feel alone in their struggles, people who believe they are the only ones suffering. When you transform your trauma into testimony, you give those people hope. You show them that survival is possible. You show them that healing is real. But let me be clear. Turning trauma into testimony does not mean pretending it did not hurt. It hurt. It was painful. It was unfair. Acknowledge that. Healing does not begin with denial. Healing begins with honesty. Feel it. Process it. Learn from it. Then ask yourself a powerful question. What did this experience teach me? Maybe it taught you resilience. Maybe it taught you who your real friends are. Maybe it taught you that you are stronger than you ever imagined. Pain is a brutal teacher, but it is an effective one. And when you grow through what you go through, you develop depth. You develop wisdom that cannot be learned from comfort. Do not waste your suffering. Extract the lesson. Extract the strength. Extract the purpose. Your story is not over because something painful happened. In fact, sometimes the most powerful chapters begin after the worst moments. You are not broken. You are becoming. Your trauma is not the end of your story. It can be the beginning of your impact. Build strength in private before you show it in public. Stop trying to perform growth. Stop trying to display progress before it is real. Real transformation is quiet. Real discipline is invisible. Real strength is built when nobody is watching, when nobody is clapping, when nobody is praising you. Everyone wants the applause. Everyone wants the recognition. Everyone wants to be seen as strong, confident, unstoppable. But very few are willing to go through the lonely process that creates that strength. Look at the journey of Muniba Mazari. Before she became a global voice, before she stood on stages inspiring thousands, there were silent nights. There were private battles. There were moments of doubt, tears, frustration, pain. The world saw the courage, but the world did not see the countless hours of mental rebuilding. That is where strength is born, in the unseen hours. You cannot fake resilience. You cannot borrow confidence. You cannot pretend discipline. These things are developed when you are alone with your thoughts, when you face your fears without distraction, when you decide to improve even if nobody notices. The gym does not build muscle in front of the crowd. It builds it in repetition. The mind does not become strong in celebration. It becomes strong in challenge. If you want emotional strength, train in silence. Practice patience when you are frustrated. Practice gratitude when you are disappointed. Practice self-control when you are angry. That is private training. Stop announcing every goal. Stop broadcasting every step. Move in silence. Let your results shock people. Let your growth speak for itself. There is something powerful about quiet preparation. When you work silently, you protect your focus. You eliminate unnecessary opinions. You remove the pressure of external validation. You grow for yourself, not for attention. Too many people collapse under pressure because they built an image instead of building character. They focused on looking strong instead of becoming strong. And when life tests them, the image breaks. Do not build an image. Build substance. Wake up early even when no one sees you. Read even when no one praises you. Improve your skills even when there is no audience. Strength built in private becomes confidence in public. And understand this, when you truly grow, you do not need to announce it. Your posture changes. Your energy changes. Your decisions change. Your standards rise. People will feel it before you say it. Private discipline creates public excellence. If you want to lead, prepare in silence. If you want to inspire, heal in silence. If you want to succeed, struggle in silence. Because when the moment comes for you to stand in front of the world, your power will not come from performance. It will come from preparation. Speak only when your words add value, not volume. Not every thought deserves to become a sentence. Not every opinion deserves to be broadcasted. Wisdom is not measured by how much you say. It is measured by the impact of what you choose to say. We live in a world where everyone is talking. Everyone is posting. Everyone is reacting. Noise is everywhere, but noise is not influence. Volume is not authority. The loudest person in the room is rarely the wisest. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this helpful? Is this true? If your words do not build, clarify, teach, encourage, or protect, then silence may be the stronger option. Look at Muniba Mazari. When she speaks, people listen. Why? Because she does not speak to impress. She speaks to impact. Her words come from reflection, from pain transformed into purpose, from silence that shaped her thoughts before she delivered them. That is power. That is intentional communication. When you speak just to react, you weaken your presence. When you speak out of anger, you damage your credibility. When you speak to prove a point, you often lose peace. But when you speak with intention, calm, clear, purposeful, your words carry weight. Powerful people do not interrupt. They observe. They listen fully. They analyze. And when they finally speak, they add clarity to confusion. They bring light to darkness. They elevate the conversation instead of escalating it. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need to comment on every issue. You do not need to correct every mistake publicly. Sometimes restraint shows more intelligence than reaction. Control of speech is control of self. Think about how many problems start because someone said something unnecessary. A sarcastic comment, a defensive reply, a careless joke. Words are powerful. Once released, they cannot be taken back. They travel, they influence, they hurt, or they heal. If you want to be respected, speak less, but speak better. Make your words intentional. Make them thoughtful. Make them constructive. Let people know that when you open your mouth, something valuable is about to come out. Not gossip, not negativity, not drama. Value. And here is a strong truth. Silence increases authority. When you are not constantly talking, people lean in when you do. When you are selective, your voice becomes rare. And rare things are respected. Do not confuse expression with maturity. Mature communication requires timing. It requires emotional control. It requires knowing when to speak and when to step back. You are not obligated to fill every silence. Sometimes silence itself is the message.